So, hey guys, this is 97 Lego Maniac, and I have a movie review for you all. Now, I saw this movie pretty late, and that is the Guardians of the Galaxy. And so, yeah, I have my minifigs with me. They're in this box. So, let's talk about the movie. Now, this review has spoilers in it, and because this movie made like 90 bajillion gazillion dollars or whatever. How many? It's just so much. It's just amazing. And I saw this movie yesterday, and so if you guys haven't seen the movie yet, then you should avoid this video. But I'm assuming most of you have seen it because most of you have been telling me that I should go see it because it's a really good movie. Now, I'm gonna talk I'm gonna talk about the goods and the bads and like that. And of course, this is gonna be spoiler, so avoid watching this. So before I get started, I wanted to talk to you about what I thought about Guardians of the Galaxy before I saw the movie and trailers and stuff. When I first heard that Marvel was going to make Guardians of the Galaxy, it sounded like a pretty awesome title because what I like about it is going to like out in space, and that's actually cool. And then I thought about doing some little research, and I discovered that they're going with the 2008 comic book version of the Guardians, and I was like, huh, 2008. Yeah, probably more than 90% of people have no idea who they are. So I kind of thought, I don't know where they were going with this, but I still have complete faith in Marvel because they've been successful for like about a decade now. And I decided to look at each of the teams. So there was like Star-Lord, Gamora, Drax, and when I was reading about them, I was like, all right, they seem like pretty interesting characters. But then it got to these two characters that I just scratched my head around: Rocket Raccoon and Groot. So wait, so the movie's gonna have a talking raccoon and a talking tree? What the heck? So I was getting confused. I was kind of confused where Marvel was going. So and I realized when the casting was up, we have Chris Pratt, who was that fat guy from Parks and Recreation, and there's gonna be Gamora, who's played by Zoe Saldana, who was the blue Avatar in this Pocahontas movie that somehow made top box office because that movie's so boring and long. And the wrestler as Drax, Dave Bautista, and the guy from The Hangover, Bradley Cooper as Rocket, and Vin Diesel, who's in the Fast and Furious franchise as Groot. It was Alright, just looking at the cast, and that's when I was kind of like, Marvel, what are you doing? And this is kind of weird. And the movie is so silly. I mean, the idea was so silly to begin with. I was actually lacking trust in Marvel until when the first trailer came out. That's when I thought, all right, maybe this movie isn't gonna be that bad because it looks like a lot of fun. But I still thought the movie isn't going to be enjoyable. And after seeing this movie yesterday, and all the TV spots and other trailers, I apologize to the galaxy. This movie is such a blast, and I really had a fun time with it. And now we're gonna talk about first Star-Lord. Star-Lord, Chris Pratt, he is Star-Lord. I mean, he really nailed the role, even though I don't know the comics of the Guardians that much. I mean, he's just so funny, especially in the beginning scene when he was like listening to the 80s music and he's like kicking iguana-looking creatures, and he actually grabbed one and used that as a microphone. That has to be hilarious. Chris Pratt, he did a hilarious job. I really loved him. I really love the balance of comedy and action in this movie. I mean, this movie obviously has a lot of comedy because judging from the trailers, I mean, it has a lot of comedy in Avengers, but the one thing is that the comedy in the Guardians always works all the time. In the Avengers, if you look at the trailers, it looks like a pretty serious movie, but you can see there's too much humor that you kind of go, all right, you just like tone it down a little bit. Guardians is you already know it's just straight up 100% humor and 100% action, and that's what you get, and that's what I really liked about it. So every time there was like a lot of humorous, stupid scenes, I don't take them seriously because I know it's supposed to be like that. It's supposed to be a fun, enjoyable movie. I think that's why some people have trouble and they say, "Oh, it's too much comedy." Well, if you think about that, you're most likely dead inside, or you're a DC fanboy. Just saying. So yeah. So Star-Lord, he was really cool. I actually like him, but the character I have to like the most is Rocket. Rocket is a pretty badass, and the thing about Rocket, yeah, having a talking raccoon is silly to begin with, but what James Gunn actually did with him, he actually gave him a lot of emotions. You actually feel emotionally attached. So, and there's Zoe Saldana as Gamora. Why do I keep saying Zoe? She's good as Gamora. I really like her character. I like that they explained her past a little bit. For each of the characters, they do explain their past, but you mostly connect with Star-Lord better because you actually see it. And I'll get to that later. And we have Drax. He has to be the weakling of the Guardians because his motive seems kind of cliche, you know, getting revenge because somebody killed someone that he loved. And so yeah, his motives are just cliche, and I could care really less for Drax. Oh yeah, speaking of, where's Drax? Yeah, I talked about Gamora and yeah, Drax. I have to say, I know Dave Bautista. He's not much of an actor. He's a wrestler, and I know that, and you can tell by his performance. His performance compared to the others, it's not as great, but he did a pretty good job for a wrestler. And yeah, and I say Drax. There's some parts when Drax is funny, like this part, the part that he takes everything too literal. Like when Rocket said that that metaphors always go over his head, and he goes, "Nothing goes around his head. My reflexes are so fast I can catch it." that has to be hilarious. And Bradley Cooper did it well as Rocket Raccoon here. So yeah, Rocket, he's just badass. Just he has to be my all-time favorite. Drax has to be my least because his motives. When he said that and talked about his motives, I was like, all right, cool story, bro. Now go do your awesome knife fighting actions. And Vin Diesel as Groot. Oh my, Groot is such a likable character, despite I hate his Lego form. And so yeah, I mean, although all he says is "I am Groot," unlike all the others, others of the Guardians of the Galaxy, they're bastards. They start off as bastards. Groot, he's just 100% sweet, and you really love his character, and you're just emotionally attached to him, especially what he did later on, which I'll get to later. So yeah, I love the characters, I love the story, and I definitely love the pacing. When I heard the running time is going to be 2 hours, I thought that was going to be a little too short, and yes, it did feel a little bit too short, but I actually like that because what they did, they got the pacing right. From start to finish, it's just non-stop of actions and good character developments all throughout. Because in the other Marvel movies you've seen, there's always some sort of interruption which just kind of bores us. There's none of that at all. It's just always interesting from point A to point B all the time. And what I also love is, I think I said action. A lot of people say that this has a lot of Star Wars film. It does, right? Really. There's a lot of Star Wars action going on. Chris Pratt, he's basically a dickhead Han Solo, and I actually like that. There is a lot of Star Wars reference in there just by looking at it, and that's funny because Star Wars is now owned by DC, and DC now owns Marvel, and you can see this partnership that they have together. What else? Oh yeah, there was also something about that kind of real. Oh yeah, at the ending credits scene, Howard the Duck. Donald Duck, you see it. so that was really nice. And what I also really loved was the supporting cast. Usually I don't care about the supporting cast because there's just supporting cast, but this movie has the best supporting cast, like Rayman Day, who's a Nova Corps officer, Nova Prime, Sale, Nebula. I mean, all those supporting cast, they did a really good job. Oh, and the Collector too. He also did a really good job despite his limited screen time. I mean, when he's there, he's just awesome. And so yeah, and also now I think that I talked about all the good. Now let's talk about the bad. The bad has to be the villain. I really didn't. I wasn't really that interested in Ronan, to be honest. I have to say, Ronan is a badass guy. He is pretty badass when he's there. Every time you see him on screen, he just does really awesome stuff. But his motives are just kind of just lackey, because his motives are basically he's just butthurt about the peace treaty between two rival empires, and he just wants to continue the war. That's it. But he just does that by just sitting down and having Korath and Nebula do his work for him, and he just uses his hammer only like twice, and just try to talk deep like this, because if he talks like this, you might think he's badass. He is badass, but I just wish there's something we get a little more from him. I mean, Marvel they get their heroes right, but they never get their villains right. It's either they just kill them off, or they just make them lackey. And like for example, the one who's really close. Actually, Loki, he has to be the best villain. He's memorable. Ronan, he's not that memorable, and that's not because he's killed off, and it's because of his motives and what he does. It's just lackey. And also the villain, Nebula. Nebula was pretty cool. In fact, I think that she's more menacing than Ronan, and which is kind of ironic. And another villain would has to be Thanos. I get it. I get why Thanos has to be there in a short time because he needs to, because it's a setup for maybe the third Avengers movie, which will have Thanos. But I just wish he could do a little bit more to excite us. Because I mean, he's like, I'm Thanos. I do this. I do that. I destroy this world. I destroy that. I torture those people. All I really saw was him sitting in his chair. That's all I saw. And I really wish you could see more of him. But he was pretty badass. Although the villains are really cool and they're definitely a force to be reckoned with, at least they're better than like Whiplash or Santa Claus's elf and Thor the Dark World. At least they're better villains than that. But I would just wish we could see a little more of them. So yeah, and what's also bad about it, I guess the movie is just a little bit too short. I wish what they do to extend the movie a little bit more is just to show us some scenes of the back history of each of those characters. Maybe for Dave. Maybe for Drax, maybe he has a flashback of his wife and his children and his daughter dying in the hands of Ronan. Because if we see that, maybe we can actually relate to Ronan. I mean, relate to Drax. Because all he does was just tell us. It's more like a show, but don't tell. And yeah, they didn't do that. All they did was show, but they never tell the story, though. You know what I mean? Whatever. I mean, you connect with Star-Lord's character more because his mother died, and you actually see that. You see his struggle, and so that's why you relate to Star-Lord more better than all the characters. And I wish we can maybe we can see Rocket like having pains through the experiments that he's been, and maybe Gamora also getting tortured by Thanos or something like that. At least give a little insight on each of those characters, maybe so that way we can relate to them a lot more. But despite all those flaws, the movie, or for Groot, maybe you don't really need a past history about him because he's just awesome in general, and he doesn't really need one. He just hangs out with Rocket. Oh yeah, and what's also good about Groot, that he has a heart. I mean, he's Vin Diesel. He voiced the Iron Giant, and he's a wood giant with a heart of gold, and you really see that. And when he sacrificed himself to save the others, you really feel that. I mean, I wasn't surprised that Groot's still alive because Marvel will never kill their characters, their hero characters, only their villains because they could care less. And what's also good about Groot when he grows back, he's dancing the Jackson 5. That has to be my favorite scene, and it's hilarious. And so yeah, that's basically it. So I was gonna give this movie a 9.8 out of 10, but I'm just gonna say this right away. This movie is 10 out of 10, perfect score. Despite all these little flaws, everything else really makes up for it. So 10 out of 10, great movie. You got so yeah, it's a good movie. Now, if you guys are still watching this and haven't seen the movie because you don't care about spoilers, just go see the movie anyway. It's still a lot of fun. So yeah, and that's it. And I'll see you guys later. So are you guys hooked on a feeling on this 100 subs video that I'm gonna make? Because if you haven't, check out my previous video. I talked about I have reached 1,000 subscribers, and what I ask you to do is leave questions below in the comments. Now, don't leave questions below in this video. Leave questions in the previous video, the one that says I hit 1,000 subs, so that way it's easier for me to track down the questions. So far, I think I have 15 questions. Pretty good so far. I think that's enough I think that's good enough. But if you want to still ask some more questions, then go do it. And if you guys ask me 100 questions, so be it. And so see you guys, and I'm out. I gotta go.